Okay, we're almost done. This is 7.4, and here we're going to look at movements that can occur between synovial joints and just the briefest of classification of synovial joints. So in this video, I'm actually going to just give you a brief introduction. I'm going to show you another video that animates or shows examples of these so you have a better idea, and we'll act these out in class. So the movements we associate, gliding, angular, rotation, and special. And we'll talk about the other ones here in a moment. But gliding movements are just when bones slide past other bones. And the best example is if I am doing this, the carpals in my wrist are sliding past one another. They're not really changing angles like you would associate if someone were to flex, but they're kind of gliding or sliding past one another, and that motion is a movement we call gliding. Angular is whenever we increase or decrease the angle between articulating bones. So if someone gives you one of these beach flexes like this, that is flexion because I'm decreasing the angle between this bone and that bone as I do that. That is flexion. If I were to go the other way and increase that angle, that's considered extension. You also can have flexion and extension of your leg. If you are standing upright in anatomical position and you raise one foot off the floor behind you, like you're going to give somebody a kiss, then that's going to be an example of flexion. I've increased the angle. If I go back to anatomical position, that would be extension. In fact, if you are in full anatomical position, all your long bones, all your limbs are extended. If you were to move out of anatomical position, you will either be in flexion or even potentially hyperextension. Here's an example. If I'm in anatomical position with my head straight up and I move my chin to my chest, that actually is flexion. I've decreased this angle. If I go from anatomical position beyond anatomical position and look at the ceiling, that would be hyperextension. So don't just think of flexion and extension as just your limbs. They can also involve your head as well. Ab and adduction are two opposites. If you move a body part in the frontal plane away from your body, like you're doing a jumping jack, that would be abduction. If you're moving it towards your body, that would be adduction. And circumduction, a little hard to show in the camera here, but if I were to simply move my arm in that mode, I'm in the frontal plane still, in a circle, that would be circumduction. So again, these are just ways that synovial joints can move. Rotation is to move in the body's long axis plane. So if I turn my head left and right, that is rotation around my neck, around my axis. I could also have, I'll try to do this, I could have rotation moving away. This would be a lateral rotation coming away, or a medial rotation where my elbow is kind of pivoting. So lateral rotation and medial rotation. I can laterally rotate my foot or medially rotate my foot. So you can also have rotation, which is to go around an axis. And then we have the special movements, which only occur at certain joints. And again, the video will show you these as well, but elevation and depression, you can elevate your shoulders, you can depress your shoulders. You can elevate your jaw, you can depress your jaw. So those only concern shoulders and the jaw. Protraction and retraction, I can't do this one, but you could protract your jaw, you could sort of throw your jaw forward, or you could retract your jaw and bring it back. So protraction and retraction only involve the joint, the TMJ, or the mandible. Inversion and eversion refer to the foot, and it's difficult for me to show you that on video, but if this was my foot and I were to stand on the outside of my foot, kind of come this direction, that is going to be considered inversion. If I stand on the inside of my foot and push my foot out, that is considered eversion. And the video will show you that better in just 1 second. Dorsiflexion and plantarflexion also refer to just the foot. If I do a ballerina and I point my foot down, that is plantarflexion. If I bring my foot up, That's dorsiflexion. Supination and pronation refer only to the motion of your arm, and that deals again with the way the radius and the ulna can move past one another. If, try this, if I am in this position and I move that way, that is considered pronation. If I move my arm back around this way, that's considered supination. How to remember that? Here's how I do it. In this way, I carry sup. So if I come this way, I am supinating. If I go that way, I am pronating. How I remember it. Opposition is right here. The only time that you have opposition are your fingers to your thumb. So that's considered opposition. This is Leotard Lady, who shows you these motions and movements. I'd encourage you to pause the video if you need to study these a little bit more. I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly. You see gliding, flexion, and extension in this one. Here you see hyperextension and flexion and more extension. You also see the dorsiflexion, the foot, the toes are pointed up. Plantar flexion, they're pointed toward the floor. To me, this is the ballerina style. Okay, you see ab and abduction over here. Ab is to go away, ad is to come toward. Circumduction is to simply turn the arm here. Rotation, we have the rotation of the head. We also can have medial and lateral rotation. If you go out to the side with something, that's lateral rotation. If you come back to the inside, that's considered medial rotation. Here you see supination and pronation. You see the hand is open, if you will, in anatomical position, and then to go around, so it's pointing behind you, is pronation. To come back around is supination. You see the elevation and depression of the mandible. Inversion, okay, again, we're talking about here now, this is her left foot. So she's standing on the outside of her foot and turned her foot inward. That's inversion. If she steps on the inside of her foot and turning her foot outward, that's eversion. Opposition, protraction, and retraction, which I can't do. We'll see a video. It's only about 3 minutes long. There really is no narration. There is a little bit of music. You can enjoy that, but you might find helpful to see these things done in or by somebody else. Okay, you'll be hearing that music now in your sleep. Finally, just wanted you to briefly look at this. This is classification of synovial joints. I want you to focus on really one particular thing here. These are going to be classified based on the shape of their articular surfaces, based on the shape of where the bones come together. I am not interested in you memorizing plane, hinge, pivot, and condyloid, etc., except just to look at this slide of the arm and to look at the different places where you have these joints. Please remember that the more structurally sound a joint is, the less movement it allows. So once again, you see the multi-axial joint here for F. That actually is a ball and socket joint. And so you see that's going to have a lot of movement associated with it. The bilateral movements that we associate with the saddle and condyloid joints in our fingers and in our carpals are going to allow a certain range of motion, but not very much. And then we associate again at the pivot joint and the hinge joint of the elbow. These are both going to be uniaxial locations or uniaxial movements. So we have very little movement there. So this just gives you a brief look at the different kinds of synovial joints in terms of classification. Again, I'm not really interested in you spending a lot of time looking at these individual types, but again, focus on the arm. Try to locate where these different joints are and why the movement they allow is what they allow. That wraps up, that wraps up 7.4, and we will have our mastering next.